So are we supposed to start the podcast?
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Welcome to I've Had It Podcast, a place for open-minded people to share their petty grievances. We have a particular type of listener, and they classify as a patriot, gaytriot, or theytriot.
Love that.
Pumps, what have you had it with today?
Okay, what I've had it with, and I saw this article yesterday, and I almost fell out of my chair. I have fucking had it with Republicans going on and on about family values, and 12 Republican-led states rejected free lunches for children. That is the least controversial thing I can think of. Let's feed school kids lunch. Let's be pro-family and pro-kid after birth. It defies logic. It infuriates me. I can't stand it. It makes me insane. And of course, I don't have to tell you how the fabulously led Limp Dick America, Oklahoma, went on that.
I know exactly how they went.
Mm-hmm.
Because the MAGA Republicans, they don't have any policies other than this real immature owning the libs.
Right.
And because that money comes from the federal government, AKA the Biden administration, governors like Kevin Stitt, whom we call Limp Dick, they thought, no, we don't need your help. And it's just like, okay, first and foremost, Governor, we pay federal taxes in this state.
That's right.
So take the money.
Take the money.
Take the money. Feed the kids. It's insanity. And it's just the hypocrisy that is so evident to a normal person, the way that it is not seen by so many millions of people fascinates me. But you know what else fascinates me about Oklahoma?
So many things, but I'm dying to hear.
So we fell prey to domestic terrorism by anti-government militia types.
Correct.
And you would think after a building was blown up with a daycare in it with kids, that the citizens of the state would start voting a little differently, would be wary of, homegrown militia, anti-government style rhetoric. Much to my surprise, they all support January 6th. They all support Donald Trump. And it's just fascinating to me that a state and a city could hurt so much by this type of ideology. And it's completely represented in the MAGA party when they went and beat the shit out of cops at the Capitol. Crickets.
It's the hypocrisy and the transparency is appalling. But I really sat and thought, like, what is less controversial than free lunch for kids? Feeding kids lunch so they can learn. I can't think of anything. And yet they don't want to do it. It's kind of like the border bill. Trump killed the border bill because he wants to run on it. He wants to say how terrible migrants are. Well, you could have stopped it, but you didn't. You could feed kids lunch and they wouldn't be hungry, but you don't want to. Your ideology sucks, and it is not pro-family at all. I'm tired of hearing about it. I've had it.
I support you, Pumps.
Thank you.
All right, let me tell you, it's not so much that I've had it today, but I have an epiphany that I would like to share with you and our listener.
Okay.
So, listener, Pumps and I like to get on the social media websites, and we have a particular interest in people that have public meltdowns on their stories and on their posts. And I know it's fucked up. Yeah, I know it doesn't mean that we're rock solid, but we like to go watch said meltdowns. And then we kind of giggle about it. And then we think, okay, we've got our shit together.
Right.
We are the top of our game. We're not having a meltdown crying in the Instagram stories for attention and likes. And we do a lot of other crazy shit.
Right.
But we're not doing that. And then I started realizing when I watched the Republican National Convention that if I lived in France or the UK, I would peek in on American politics, and I would see Kid Rock and Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt off and Trump blowing him a kiss. And I would probably feel pretty patriotic about the place that I came from.
Right.
So I'm wondering if people that are not Americans, when they look in on our politics, if they're like, my government's not perfect, but at least I don't live in America.
Right. At least we're not considering reelecting a stone cold, unhinged, racist, homophobic fucking dick.
Convicted felon.
Dick. Convicted felon, liable for sexual abuse. I mean, the list goes on. $500 million in debt because he defrauded the state of New York. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Don't you know they sit there and go, what?
Well, it's all of the projection that Trump uses is very telling. The world is laughing at us. Right. No, they're laughing at you and the whole Hulk Hogan style stuff that you do. Or this is like a third world country. Well, no, when the adults are in charge, it's not.
Right.
When you are on the airwaves or when you are in charge and you send, these poor people that have been completely indoctrinated and radicalized by right-wing media to the Capitol. And all of that was funded by all of these Christian nationalist groups and organized by all of these Christian nationalist groups, a very nefarious ideas for the country. But they think it's third world when that happens. And there's not a big response yet. And our country's response is that you're nominated to run again. That's the third world component of it.
Right.
The fact that he's not been incarcerated for that. That's the third world component of it. And hopefully as we progress and we can start to rid ourselves of having Trumpism on the ballot, we can start addressing the illegal nature and the unconstitutional nature of the way that they try to operate.
I just wonder, has Trudeau or Macron, have you ever seen them all caps lock?
At 2 a.m.?
At 2 a.m. Crooked Joe Biden or crooked. I mean, the shit he says is so unpresidential. It's so undignified. I can't think of, I'm trying to rattle my brain.
I'm just mystified by the carve-outs that all of these people make for him. Like you have the full-blown cult. Their whole identity is MAGA. They wear MAGA shirts. They have MAGA on their car. They have MAGA flags. They have MAGA decor. And so it's obvious, you cannot have a reasonable conversation with these people. And then you have the MAGA voter, in my opinion, who is far more insidious. This would be a person of upper middle class stature, probably never really been in trouble with the law, earns a fairly decent income. And when they hear him speak and they see these tweets, they continue to vote for him. Because I know you and I both, between us, we probably know several people that are going to go and vote for him for the third time. But if you pull them aside, they probably wouldn't mention it. It's like the embarrassed Trump voter.
His behavior is so egregious that people that you're referring to, I think it's almost embarrassing. I think that it's on the down low.
But here's how I've been able to kind of hawk them out.
How?
So on Instagram, when you see pro-Trump posts, you can go to the likes and click the likes and it will show you the people that you follow or follow you. And I've busted some of these people that I know personally out there on the internet, rogue liking a bunch of this stuff. So it tells me that there is this appetite for what he's doing.
Right.
That they're getting some sort of reward in it in their brain for this, his type of cruelty. Because at this point in the election cycle, full stop, you support racism if you vote for Donald Trump.
Absolutely. And I did see something that someone said, well, I'm not a racist. I just support Donald Trump. you're not a racist, but being a racist is not a deal breaker for you. So there's no fucking difference.
Here's the thing. Anybody who has to go around and say, I'm not a racist, I immediately know
They're
that
racist.
they're a racist.
Right. I mean, that's an advertisement.
I immediately know. If you have to say, I'm not a racist, but I'm supporting Donald Trump, I know you're a racist. I know the crowds that you hang out with. Y'all live in this cognitive dissonance world where, you can make all of these moral carve-outs and cherry pick all this and cherry pick all that. I know, and everybody else knows on the other side of that lives in reality, that you're a racist and you're a racist apologist and you're voting for racist ideals. I mean, it's just, we have to start calling it exactly what it is. And I will say, I know people that they're not my friends, but like I know them from the community, and I know they're racist. I know they're voting for Donald Trump. All white people have been in situations with other white people where people say these off-colored remarks, and the people who try to pretend like that doesn't exist anymore and that doesn't happen, those are the racists.
Right. That's part of the problem.
The real allies will say, no, I know what you experience and I know the way you're treated because I've heard it and I hear it and I see it. And we are going to stand with you and fight with you to try to finally reconcile this horrible history of our country of racism.
It really is. I mean, I say in my head, when Donald Trump's gone, this won't exist. Hopefully it'll get better. But then Nikki Haley, she was just running for president. And she's like, oh, well, the United States isn't a racist country. I'm like, are you kidding? You changed your name because of the racism attached to an Asian name.
It's just, it's the Republican Party right now is such a cancer.
It is.
In this country.
It's obscene.
It is. It is completely obscene. Kiley, what is going on the World Wide Web?
I've got a 5-star review for you.
Okay.
Called Saving Lives. And Rachel writes, listen up, patriots. This podcast will give you the will to live. I have been recommending this podcast to all the right-leaning members of my life, and now they don't talk to me. I ask them, hey, do you listen to that podcast I recommended? Left on red. I never shut them up so fast in my life, so I have the ladies to thank. Go Jen and Meemaw, America's greatest legal mind, the greatest camel toe in all of America.
That's a great review.
That's a great review, and now they don't talk to me. Problem solved.
The people, you can tell the people that get triggered by the things that we say about Republican policies, Republican culture, white culture, and Christian culture, because we call it out and we speak rather candidly about it, and they get triggered, and privileged white people aren't used to that.
Right.
Especially when the call is coming from inside their own house.
Right.
Me and you that look like, would be nestled up on some right-wing podcast, and it really makes them uncomfortable. And they really struggle with the call out, which makes me want to put my foot on the accelerator even more, because I am so sick of white people, not all white people, but a big segment. And we live in a red state where the majority of them are what I'm about to say. They just don't have empathy or the ability to give a shit about anything unless it personally impacts them. And then some of these people get personally impacted, and then they still start making carve-outs. And it's just, it's just this individualism at all costs and no sense of collectivism. And historically, if you look at societies that embrace collectivism, their economies are better, they're more stable, their happy factor is greater, their quality of life is greater. And here we are dying on this, individualism hill. And you see it a lot with privileged white people. And when they get called out by you and I, they get, oh, those girls use the F-bomb. Fucking get over it.
Yeah. Or they're angry.
Or, oh my God, they spoke about religion. And it's like, yes, We did. There's a big problem with a big sect of it in this country. Let's have an intellectual conversation about it. Why are you so triggered? It's a larger question here.
You're a little bit defensive.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen up, patriots, gaytriots, and theytriots. We have a treat for you. We have an in-studio guest. He is arriving right now. We're going to do a little chair switcheroo, and we are going to welcome to I've Had It podcast studios in Oklahoma City, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear. Pumps, our ability to suck and then wake up the next day and suck more than the previous day is undefeated.
It's unparalleled. We are the champions.
If you would like to see how bad we suck, please join us in Seattle in September or New York City in November for, just some world-class shit talking.
That's right.
Live
And in person.
That's right. Listener, it's no secret that Pumps has been on a weight loss journey and everyone is talking about it right now because she looks dynamite. But you don't have to be rich and famous like Pumps in order to get access to these medication. Through hers, you can get access to a budget-friendly weight loss program personalized just for you.
Losing weight is so hard, but when it comes to prioritizing your health and feeling confident and strong, it can be difficult to know where to start. That's why hers was invaluable to me.
Hers is changing women's healthcare by providing access to GLP-1 weekly injections with the same active ingredient as Ozempic and Wegovy, as well as oral medication kits. Weight loss by hers is realistic, not restrictive, and is focused on giving you access to the solution that is right for you. Plus, your personalized treatment ships for free directly to your door. Start your free online visit today at forhers.com/hadit. That's FORHERS.com/hadit for your personalized weight loss treatment options. forhers.com/hadit. Not available everywhere, Hers weight loss includes compound products which are not approved nor verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescription products require a provider consultation. Restrictions apply. Actual price to customer will depend on product and subscription plan purchase. You know what I've had it with?
What have you had it with?
Talking about what men need to do if they get a 4-hour erection. I want to start talking about my 4-hour nap after sex, but where's my option? I did some homework and it turns out there is a pink pill for women. It's called Addyi, and a woman got it approved by the FDA. In clinical trials, Addyi was shown to boost sex drive in certain premenopausal women bothered by low libido. Hell yes. It's prescription and the only FDA-approved pink pill. I asked my doctor about it, but you can speak to a telehealth provider online at addyi.com, ADDYI.com. Finally, can those be the Super Bowl ads from now on?
Addyi, or flibanserin, is for premenopausal women with acquired generalized hypoactive sexual desire disorder, HSDD, who have not had problems with low sexual desire in the past, who have low sexual desire no matter the type of sexual activity, the situation, or the sexual partner. The low sexual desire is troubling to them and is not due to a medical or mental health problem, problems in the relationship, or medicine or other drug use. Addyi is not for use in men or to enhance sexual performance. Your risk of severe low blood pressure and fainting is increased if you drink 1 to 2 standard alcoholic drinks close in time to your Addyi dose. Wait at least 2 hours after drinking before taking Addyi at bedtime. Your risk of severe low blood pressure and fainting is also increased if you take certain prescriptions, over-the-counter or herbal medications, or have liver problems. Low blood pressure and fainting can happen when you take Addyi, even if you don't drink alcohol or take other medicines. Do not take if you are allergic to any of the ingredients in Addyi. Allergic reactions may include hives, itching, or trouble breathing. Sleepiness, sometimes serious, can occur. Common side effects include dizziness, nausea, tiredness, difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, and dry mouth. See full PI and medication guide, including boxed warning, at addyi.com/PI or call 844-PINK-PILL. Addyi.
ADDYI.com. All right. As promised, back from the break, we have the governor of Kentucky, and we're so excited because we live in a red state and we know what an uphill battle that must be to win as a Democrat. Andy Beshear, how did you do it?
Well, thank you all for having me, and excited to be in Oklahoma today. In Kentucky, we won by staying true to our values of compassion, of empathy, and of caring for your neighbor. And I think the key is recognizing that what people care about most isn't partisan. Mm-hmm. It's not the polls. It's not the next race. It's your job. And whether you make enough to support your family, it's your next doctor's appointment for yourself, your parents, or your kids. It's the roads and the bridges you drive that day. It's the public safety in your community and the public schools you're dropping your kids off at. And I believe that if you can convince people that you are focused on those everyday worries where they don't get to the issue of the day in Washington, D.C., if they're not satisfied, if they don't feel comfortable with those basic family challenges, if you work on those every day, I think people give you the benefit of the doubt. They see that you're really trying. But I think the other thing is sharing your why. Giving people a framework to where even if they disagree with you, they know you're doing what you think is right. And so for me, that's my faith. It's not something I push on anybody else, but it's something that's very personal to me and a big part of why I make decisions the way I do. So there was an example last year where I vetoed the nastiest anti-trans bill that our state legislature had ever passed. And I did it in my election year, knowing that they'd make a big deal out of it. But listen, first, some things are worth losing over. And people had picked on those kids.
Yes.
And I wanted them to know if a legislature was showing them hate, a governor was going to show them love. But when I talked about it, I talked about my belief that all children are children of God.
Right.
And so later I had some people that came up to me that said, I don't always agree with you, but I know you're doing what you think is right.
Right. I think that all of the things you spoke about before the trans issue, which is something really, really, really important to us and our listeners, how marginalized these people are. And when you have a government and politicians that further institutionalize the bullying, it's just an extra layer of heartache that no human being should get from their government. But the things that you spoke about, the infrastructure and education, I'm mystified as a woman that has lived in this red state, Oklahoma, since I was 7 years old, which is quite a long time. And not as long as she has, for the record, because I'm younger, but I digress. That when you hear a Democratic politician speak about infrastructure, they have plans for it and they pass it and it happens. And when you hear Democratic politicians talk about education, they have plans for it and it passes. For the life of me, Governor, I can't figure out what MAGA policies are except for, quote, owning the libs.
Well, certainly those politics have become about who you're against and not what you're for.
Right.
And if you're running just because you're against someone, if you only see the world through a red lens, or for that matter, if you only see the world through a blue lens, you're not going to get things done. I mean, our legacy shouldn't be about the number of seats that are held by this or that. It should be about the number of families we help. It should be about how we move people's lives forward. And I will tell you, the Biden-Harris administration have passed some really important laws that help us in all those areas I'm talking about. Like the VP Harris helped pass the bipartisan infrastructure law. And that's how I'm repairing a lot of these roads and bridges. Well, with the bipartisan infrastructure law in Kentucky, we're building the 2 largest electric vehicle battery plants on planet Earth. That's $5.8 billion in investment. It's 5,000 jobs for my people.
Right.
And when people see 5,000 jobs and they see the largest battery plant and the second largest one on planet Earth coming up, there's no longer an argument about the economy. They see hope. It's that tangible representation.
Okay, so when you look at the other side of the ticket, the MAGA side of the ticket, to me, it seems like, it appears that every time there's an opportunity to fix something, like bring hostages home from Russia, Donald Trump gets mad, cap lock on Truth Social like a maniac. When our senator, James Lankford, who is far to the right, I've never voted for him, will never vote for him, but he earnestly tried to negotiate a border deal with the Democrats, and he had one. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump didn't want it. He does it every time you look behind the bluster. It seems like he doesn't like American progress or American success stories. Right now, he's just going bananas on his crazy psycho.
That's a nice way to say it.
He's just going crazy because these Americans get to come home that were probably, from in Russia, and you know how nefarious those actors over there are, and he's not happy about it.
I've actually been banned by Russia, and I take that as a badge of honor. The governor of Kentucky
Yes.
banned by Russia. Donald Trump cares more about himself and his election than he does about the United States of America, and that ought to be disqualifying in and of itself. And why we need Vice President Harris as our next president is we also need to move beyond this. We've been at a boiling point in our country for far too long. Donald Trump pushing anger politics, trying to get one neighbor mad at another neighbor simply because of the registration, the box they checked when they turned 18. Hate and anger are never tools to use against another person, another American. And we've got to get beyond this. And I believe that the vice president is going to remind us in her leadership as president that we are Americans first and Democrats and Republicans second. And what Donald Trump and J.D. Vance try to do in turning us against each other, that's poison for the country. And in the long term, it doesn't help us be better people, do better things, or move forward. I always say if we could stop focusing on moving to the right or moving to the left and we could just move forward, all of us together, then we could do a whole lot more in this country. But I know the vice president, and I know that's where she wants to lead us.
She's an incredible leader. We've met her, obviously, and we were struck by she's so thoughtful. Mm-hmm. Like, she doesn't pop off. She knows what her policies are. What have you, having lived in Kentucky, Mitch McConnell's been the senator there forever, as he's aging, do you notice a shift in the senatorial politics there? Do you think that will continue to be a Mitch McConnell type politician that comes out of Kentucky?
Well, we'll see what happens when Mitch steps down. The sad part is that Mitch McConnell puts party before country. And even in his rhetoric, he's always talking about my party, my party. How about our country? Right. And you can tell that he thinks Donald Trump should not be president, but simply because of, quote unquote, his party, he's out there towing the line. I think people are tired of the back and forth. I think we've reached the breaking point for so many people that they don't want everything to be partisan. Right now, everything from the car you drive to the beer you drink, you're supposed to pick a team.
Right.
And nobody wants to do that. Right? They want to be able to come home and spend time with their friends and family and not be arguing about everything.
I think people do like it, though. I think there is a reward system for a large portion of the population.
Well, if I can just push back a little, look at all the energy around the vice president.
I agree.
Never seen anything like it, and it's energy coming not just from Democrats, but from independents and from some Republicans that were looking for something different. And I think it's for a couple reasons. Number one, she's amazing.
Right.
And she's generated more energy in terms of volunteers, in terms of fundraising than we have ever seen. This is unprecedented. But I think there was also just such a desire to move past where we are. And they see in her a candidate that can take us past it to someplace better. Imagine being able to put your kids down in front of the TV when the president is on and not having to worry about what they say. And that's a pretty low bar, isn't it?
It's a low bar.
But getting back to the point where that's always expected, where you can't be a legitimate candidate unless that's the case. And I think this is the election that we can do that in. So I'm all in. I am all in for this vice president, even in a state that's tough. I'm being as vocal as I can be. I'm doing everything that I can. I mean, Donald Trump appointed Supreme Court justices that ripped a constitutional right away from my wife, my mom, and my daughter. I mean, they stripped them of that right. So I think it's our job to strip Donald Trump of any chance to ever serving as president ever again.
I agree. And I don't understand why felony convictions didn't do that, but apparently it doesn't.
Pumps, I know that your lifelong battle against aging, especially being the oldest member of the podcast, is something you take very seriously. Have you heard about senolytics yet?
I have. Quantalia Senolytics is the biggest discovery of our lifetime for promoting health, aging, and enhancing my physical prime.
You know, Pumps, if someone would have told me that there are science-backed ingredients that could help me feel 15 years younger in a matter of months, I wouldn't have believed it. Then I tried Qualia Senolytic. As we age, everyone accumulates senescent cells in their body. Senescent cells cause symptoms of aging, such as aches and discomfort, slow workout recoveries, sluggish mental and physical energy associated with that, quote, middle age feeling. All you have to do is take it just 2 days a month. The formula is non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, and the ingredients are meant to complement one another, factoring in the combined effect of all ingredients together. Has a 100-day money-back guarantee. New research on aging and longevity, including a clinical study on Qualia Senolytic, shows that senolytic supplementation can play a huge role in enhancing how we age. Listener, be like Pumps and resist aging at the cellular level. Try Qualia Senolytic. Go to qualialife.com/hadit for up to 50% off and use code HADIT at checkout for an additional 15% off. For your convenience, Qualia Senolytic is also available at select GNC locations near you. That's QUALIA life.com/hadit for an extra 15% off your purchase. Thanks to Qualia for sponsoring today's episode. Do you love the Golden Girls? Then we are so excited to tell you about the Golden Girls Deep Dive podcast, a hilarious new podcast recapping everyone's favorite sitcom, The Golden Girls. The Golden Girls Deep Dive podcast is more than just a recap show because they have a full-time researcher on their team, so each episode is packed with fun facts and little-known trivia about the show. And at the end of each episode, the host gives you a fully researched deep dive into something fascinating from the Golden Girls universe. For example, remember Coco, the gay chef from the pilot episode? Where did he go? Whatever happened to that actor? The Golden Girls Deep Dive podcast will give you his whole story, including its unbelievable and truly mysterious ending. How about this one? Did you know that Bea Arthur was a truck driver in the Marines before becoming an actress? Or how about that rumored on-set feud between Bea Arthur and Betty White? The Golden Girls Deep Dive team has done the research, and they are going to tell you all about it. Hosted by true crime obsessed Patrick Hines and Broadway scene stealer Jennifer Simard, the Golden Girls Deep Dive podcast premiered at the top of Apple and Spotify's podcast charts just a few weeks ago and already has hundreds of 5-star reviews. So grab your cheesecake and head to the lanai as you follow the Golden Girls Deep Dive podcast wherever you listen. You know what I like about the Harris ticket is that even if you don't support her and you don't vote for her, her policies are going to help you. And your life is accepted in her policies for the, white couple, heterosexual that might live in a cookie cutter subdivision in, suburban Kentucky or suburban Oklahoma that might give birth to a gay child or to a trans child. And you might not be there yet. You might not have evolved enough yet to where you care about that yet. All of us here are caring for your child before you get there. And that's what I like about this party, because I feel like when you talk about Donald Trump and you talk about J.D. Vance, there is a cruelty to it. And there's an appetite with the people around them where I feel like they get some reward off of it. And I just think that that party is so exclusionary and they get so triggered by melanin, estrogen, things that should be embraced and celebrated. And it's just very problematic that in 2024, the guy from your state that you gave credit for Ukraine, Senator Mitch McConnell, who I don't like one bit because of what he did with the Supreme Court, along with many other things. But he had an opportunity to deal with Trump. They had an opportunity to impeach him. And so they're going to carry him to term, and they're going to carry that baby all the way to term to a big electoral mandate from Kamala Harris and the Democrats, because I think we are going to win, but it's not a matter of how much. It's not a matter if we're going to win anymore. It's how much, because the only way we can defeat MAGA republicanism is a large electoral mandate.
Well, and I think we've got to make sure to keep the focus on Donald Trump and on J.D. Vance and try to give everybody else the grace and the space to hear what they're saying, to leave that movement, and to ultimately help our country move forward. Even if they've been on the bandwagon, me personally, I don't want to group them in a group of people, because I want to provide every single opportunity to say public service is about running as this or that, but then taking that hat off and serving every single American. And I've got to believe in the past, whether it was McCarthyism or other eras, that the country had reached a boiling point. And then there was a leader who pushed us past that. And I think that's Vice President Harris. And I believe that we get out there, we win this election, she is going to govern in a special way that everybody sees, whether they voted for her or not. They're going to gravitate to that type of leadership and say, wow, I can't believe how far off track we all got in our expectations for government and how we treat other human beings. Whether it's how you're raised, whether it's your values, whether it's any faith that's out there, we are all taught to be good to each other.
Right.
And somehow our politics has become about attacking, at least on one side, and dividing. And that can only work for so long. And so I think this election is when we end anger politics. And if we can end it for good, oh my goodness, the VP Harris will have done more than just deliver on democracy. She'll have moved us in an amazing direction.
I like your optimism.
I was just going to say, I love the optimism.
However,
It's what keeps me going.
I like it. I like that you allow space and grace, and this is why you're a governor, and we are petty grievance little podcasters over here. I appreciate it. But I also think we have to remember that every time somebody of color wins, there is a whitelash. And so after she wins, we have to vociferously support her and be actively anti-racist, because the first Black female president, there will be a whitelash just like there was for Obama, and it's already starting. The racist, all that stuff's coming out on that side. And so I think it's really important that folks that look like us and that sound like the three of us really stand strongly as anti-racist and stand really strong with the Black and brown community. But I'm going to tell you.
But I think we got to do that, even now.
Right. Agree.
In my state, we've seen a lot of anti-DEI bills. Well, DEI is not a 4-letter word. Right. It is a 3-letter acronym. And by the way, all the values that it stands for are in the Bible. Diversity makes us stronger.
Right.
It makes us better. But guess what? The private sector has embraced these hiring practices. And all of a sudden, you have a political party that used to claim they support the private sector attacking them and trying to govern how they hire individuals. It is an about face that says this isn't the party of the private sector of the economy.
Limited government.
No
That's
limited
a myth.
government.
Is that not the biggest bunch of BS, that they're for small government, yet they're regulating women's OBGYN appointments? They're regulating how businesses hire people. It's
Books.
Oh, the books. We're going to get to that. Okay. We love politics, even though.
I can tell.
But I forgot to ask you what you've had it with. Just an everyday grievance, Governor.
Yeah, I've had it with anger politics. We've talked about it a little, but going back, I won last year. So the Kentucky governor's race is always the biggest race right before the presidential race. And the first $11 million they spent against me, they were attacking kids. I mean, it's just the words and the anger, it's just wrong. And we beat it last year. I beat Donald Trump's handpicked candidate. I beat Mitch McConnell's handpicked candidate. I beat Rand Paul's handpicked candidate in Rand Paul's hometown.
Love it.
And this year, I'm going to help the vice president beat Donald Trump again. But when you look at just the way that it's occurring, we've got to move past it. It's one of the most important things that we need to do as a country, because we are not each other's enemies. And just getting back to that point, and I said it about being Americans first and being Democrats and Republicans second, of recognizing that when we focus on jobs and infrastructure, public education, public safety, healthcare, that we help everybody. And doesn't that sound good? A policy that helps everybody.
You're right.
No, I think so. Okay, let's play our game.
Okay.
Had it or hit it. And we spoke a little bit, listener, before the governor started, and he said, I just don't know if certain things I can use the phrase hit it. So he might say, I'm for it. All right.
Being a 46-year-old governor, that can be kind of dangerous.
Right.
Okay. Oh, my God. Welcome to Had It or Hit It. I would hit it.
Had it.
Had it. I hit it every day, sometimes twice a day. All right. Had it or hit it, Mitch McConnell.
Had it. Mitch McConnell has put his party in front of his state. There are some things that he is doing right now that others are not that I appreciate. But like you said, he could have moved this country in a right direction to not have Donald Trump running right now, and he failed. He absolutely failed.
We always say, how can we expect a lot from him when he won't defend Trump's attacks against his wife?
Now, sadly, what you see is somebody who is transactional, that all that matters is the number of R's versus D's in the Senate. And life and service has to be about more than that. Legacy can't be, I took the Republican Party from here to somewhere bigger. Legacy is about what did you pass to help people?
Right.
How did you move the economy forward? How did you help people to be able to go to their doctor and afford it? How did you help people with prescription drug prices? These are all things that the vice president is doing right now. That's what creates a real legacy.
I think he's been an abject failure. I think he completely has ruined the Supreme Court and made an absolute mockery of it. Angie's an attorney, and she talks about all the time that when she was in law school, she revered judges, especially Supreme Court. It is a laughingstock. It is, and what he did with Obama's pick and Merrick Garland, and then was a complete hypocrite on it later on. I think he's an abject failure, and I think he will go down in the history books as one of the worst senators ever. And he played an integral part in ruining the Republican Party. I've never voted a Republican. I'll probably never vote Republican. Wait, I take that back. Our mayor of our city.
Yeah, our mayor's good.
I like our mayor, and he's Republican because he's very nonpartisan, and he speaks. It's a city for everybody to live in. He says, "Shout out, mayor." I decorated his office too, but anyway,
That helps.
I really
Must
like
be a nice
him.
office.
I really like him. Yeah, but I just think that what he's done to the Republican Party, where the party like our mayor, David Holt, that he's a very open-minded person that accepts all people, and I think Mitch McConnell played an integral part in ruining the Republican Party, and I also think nobody should be in politics that long. Andy, if you are 80-something years old and you're still parading around, running around in politics, I just think you've got to have your wife call it. I think you've got to write it down now.
If somehow that happens, I will come back here.
Right. And we'll just say.
And I'm pretty sure you'll tell me what you think. And maybe you'll be able to convince me. But I never got into this for a career. I got into this because when my kids were born, I looked at them, and in my mind, I asked myself if I was doing everything I could to build a better world for those two and everybody else's. And that's why I'm here today.
I'll tell you, you have for a lot of kids in Kentucky, because we live in a state where there is no Governor Beshear.
No.
And it's full-blown Christian nationalism. And we have a school superintendent who has mandated that all schools put the 10 Commandments on the walls. And he recently, just in the last 2 days, said on television that he was going to have the Libs of TikTok founder go out Gestapo style and find any teachers in the Oklahoma school districts that criticized the scar on Trump's ear from the assassination attempt and fire them. And nobody has fired this guy from his job. So residents of Kentucky, you're very lucky to have a Governor Beshear, because when you have a Republican supermajority in a state, which is what we have, Republican governor, Republican Supreme Court, Republican House, Republican Senate, it is, and pardon my language, Governor, but there's no other word for it, it is an absolute shit show. There is no hope anywhere for any marginalized people that live in the state. So the citizens of Kentucky are so lucky to have you, because we know how brutally painful it can be to live in a state where all they want to do is gobble up people. They're not wanting more. They just want same. So, all right, moving along. Had it or hit it, Diet Mountain Dew.
Okay, I beat up on Diet Mountain Dew too much, so I will say in this one, hit it. This is not Diet Mountain Dew's fault that J.D. Vance made a joke about racism.
It's
Right.
unbelievable.
A joke about racism, but should we be surprised? Because in the course of a week, J.D. Vance made a joke about racism, and then Donald Trump was just blatantly racist the other night with the journalists.
Yeah.
Birds of a feather.
But he ain't from Kentucky. He ain't from Appalachia.
Yeah.
And he ain't going to be vice president of the United States.
Love it. All right. Had it or hit it, childless cat ladies.
Oh, first of all, I'm not sure I can use either of those terms in this one.
I know. That was a gotcha.
But
Sorry.
listen, everyone out there has so much value, and to judge anyone not knowing their story, just mean and cruel. And again, the words that J.D. Vance and his running mate will use to describe people are just wrong. And then they try to say, well, we're pro-family. Well, guess what? That lady is somebody's family too.
That's right.
That's somebody's daughter. That's somebody's sister. That's somebody's aunt. And you're attacking people without even knowing them.
Okay, 2 more.
Okay.
And then we know you're busy. All right. Had it or hit it, book banning.
Oh, had it. I mean, when has book banning helped a society?
Right.
Never.
And I will tell you, it's all, again, just an attempt to divide people. In my election, this was going on, and they were saying, well, kids are being exposed to things they shouldn't be exposed to. And then my opponent ran $11 million attacking trans youth. And I'll never forget the day that people started walking up to me saying the same thing. They said, I just had to have a conversation with my kids I didn't expect. And it wasn't because of what they learned in school. And it wasn't because of anything in the library. It was because your opponent put $11 million of commercials on the topic he said my kids should be protected from on TV.
The hypocrisy is jaw-dropping.
It shows you it's not real. Again, it's that anger politics where, you ought to have something that you're going to do that people want you to be in that office for. But now you see people who don't even run on a platform. They just run against people.
Right.
Good on you, Governor, for standing up for trans kids.
Yes.
It's
Because
just the right thing.
that is such a marginalized group. And the more they're bullied, the higher the suicide rates go up. And I think we know how hard it is to do that stuff in a red state. And I mean it sincerely. That is just amazing that you so stood up for them. And it's really, really a beautiful thing.
I'd do it again. There are some things worth losing over, and I don't like bullies.
I don't either. All right. Which brings us to our final one. Had it or hit it, Kamala Harris.
I can't use either of those terms. There. I am fully 1,000% in support of the vice president. She is going to be the next president of the United States. She is smart and strong, which makes a good president. But she's also kind and has empathy, which makes a great president. This is somebody who is tough as nails. I was a former attorney general. She is too, and I recognize one when I see her. But I still remember the first time that I really got to talk to her. She was flying in to Kentucky to do an event, I think in Ohio, but the big airport's in Kentucky. It's on our side of the river. And I took my kids to meet her because I wanted them to see the first woman vice president of the United States, and I wanted them to see her. Because I've been so supportive in that last election. She came off the plane, she said, hi, Governor, and then she turned and she talked to my kids the whole time. I mean, looked them right in the eye, talked to them about the things that they like to do. This is the vice president of the United States. Taking that time with my kids, I will never forget that. It shows you that there is a good person there. It shows you how ridiculous some of the stuff they've thrown at her over the years or that they are right now. This is somebody who has both the head, the backbone, and the heart to be an amazing president.
I couldn't agree more. I mean,
Could not agree more.
We are so excited. It is, I think, what our party needed. And it's so exciting to see everybody coalesce around such a competent, masterful person like Vice President Kamala Harris. And I cannot tell you, when we found out you were going to be in Oklahoma City and you took the call and you agreed to stop by here, what a pleasure and an honor it's been to have you in our studios.
Well, thanks for having us. It's an incredible studio. I can tell what you do for a living. And would recommend it to anybody that's out there. But thank you all for giving me a little bit of time. But most importantly, thanks for giving me an opportunity to support the vice president. This one is absolutely critical. But when I say I think she can lead us in a better direction that'll lift everyone up and leave no one out, I mean it. And that's what our country desperately needs, leading us to a better place where we're going to be able to talk with each other, where we're going to be able to work with each other. And, I think eventually a better place where 7 states don't decide the presidency, or maybe every
nice.
state
Oh
is a battleground state.
Yes.
And then we can all have the conversations. Everyone gets the exposure to all the ideas that are out there. That better democracy is waiting for us, but we got to work for it. And in this instance, that means we've got to elect Vice President Harris as our next president of the United States.
I completely agree. Listener, thank you so much for tuning in with us and Governor Beshear. We have an exciting announcement. We have been invited to the Democratic National Convention, and we will be dropping podcast episodes with big surrogates for the Democratic Party the entire week. And we're announcing this here with the governor. So if you happen to be around there as a surrogate for Kamala, please swing by and say hi to us, and we'll make a TikTok or something exciting.
I will be there as a delegate, and in any other way they ask me to, I look forward to it.
All right. Thanks so much, listener.
Thanks for coming.
Thank y'all.